My name is Terrell Deppe, and my background, going way back background, actually starts out in broadcast video and some embedded systems, some interactive marketing types of things. A lot of things that go on with telecommunications, typical IT data management types of things. And right now I am primarily focused on healthcare with this company, which is Healthcare Anytime. Our focus is primarily a cloud-based software as a service business that is really designed to take health information and bring it together into one place so that the patient can have all of the information necessary to go from provider to provider, specialist to specialist, and have their lab results, have their important information readily available at their fingertips. Now, we do that through something called a patient portal or a health portal. We address not just the needs of the patient, but also staff members and clinicians and things like that. And if any of you are familiar with healthcare and the terms meaningful use and all that stuff, that's really what our target is. We're very heavily invested in solving the problems of stage 2 meaningful use. In the event that you are not in healthcare, and none of that makes any sense, don't worry about it, because what I'm going to talk to you about here has pattern implications among various industries. We deal with both clinical and financial data at Healthcare Anytime, and pretty much whatever else the federal government seems to dream up in terms of regulatory compliance. But enough of the boring stuff. Let's get into having a little bit of fun, shall we? What I have here my special guest here is the mystery box, and I would like to know if anybody in the audience would be interested in taking home the valuable contents of this box. We have somebody from DataStax that is right here that is going to be picking one of you out because I have glaring lights in my eyes. So if you are interested in taking home the valuable contents of the box, please raise your hand, volunteer. I see shadows going up here and here, and
David King.
A couple over there.
All right, we've got David King here, who is up for taking home the mystery box.
David, please come up here and assist me with my presentation, if you don't mind.
Here you go, David.
You can take the shortcut if you want. How athletic are you? All right. No, this is the mystery box. That is the mystery sign.
Mystery towel?
Yes. Well, thank you very much for offering to come up here and assist me with the presentation. This is part of a presentation that I no matter how hard I tried, I could not possibly figure out a way to make this a part of the presentation and not have any assistance. And I will make it up to you. I will reward you for your efforts. But as a part of this portion of the presentation, I need for you to provide me with something in return. Okay? We have rules. Every game has a rule, right? And David's rules are, first of all, that he accurately tell me what is in that box. And I mean precisely. Guessing is not an option. You have to tell me what is in that box.
It's not my wife's head, is it?
There is nobody's head in there.
That's good.
It is nothing gross. This is I am in healthcare, but that, there's no beating heart or anything of that nature. But I need to know precisely what is in that box, and I need to know it in a timely manner. Okay? Now here's the catch. In order for me to do this, and in order for you to do this, we have to put some constraints around it, because what is timely, right? So in this case, timely was 90 seconds from the time that you accepted the challenge, which means you have about 5 seconds left. I suggest you dump the box.
That was expensive.
What do we have here? We have an avalanche. And
We have an avalanche.
What is tell me exactly what the valuable contents of the box is.
Lots of paper. That's important.
Okay.
And this is an iPad mini.
All right, thank you. Would you like to take home the iPad mini?
I would.
You may take that home. That is yours to take. It's all yours.
I
Thank you for assisting me with the presentation. Now, when David arrived here, he had no idea he was going to be taking home an iPad, did he? When David arrived here, he didn't realize he was going to be invited up here on stage, did he? Apparently not. However, he was given a question, a problem, a challenge that he couldn't have possibly known what the answer was. How could he have possibly known what was in the box? Well, all he had to do was identify, access, process, and report on this information in a timely manner. Well, as I mentioned earlier, timeliness is relative, right? Sometimes we have 90 seconds, like David had. Sometimes we have only seconds. Sometimes we need to know the answer immediately. Before we're even asked, we need to have that answer ready to go. And that is a big data problem. Now, when it comes to timeliness and the importance of time, one of the industries that I have worked with that places a much higher emphasis on timeliness than many is the transportation industry's auto racing aspect of auto racing. You know, it's something that if you're not a fan and you're not a follower of auto racing, you'd be surprised at the amount of information that's collected. There are many different venues in auto racing, and I've had the privilege of designing and developing timing and scoring systems for this industry. And I can tell you that there are oval track races, there are drag races, there's road races, there are open road races, there are all these different forms of motorsports. And about the only thing that they have in common, believe it or not, is time, speed, and a lot of money. Now, some of them only turn left, some turn left and right. Some of them use the same physical location for their starting line and their finish line, and others do not. They all have very different and constantly evolving rules. Some of them, believe it or not, even have speed limits. And you might think, speed limits in auto racing? What's the point in racing if you can't go as fast as you want to go, right? Well, one of the venues that I have worked with is in open road racing, and in particular, I worked on the Big Bend open road racing event in South Texas. Now, this is like a 60-mile road course on a state highway from Fort Stockton to Sanderson and back again, just north of Big Bend. Now, every event has rules, and of course, every state has rules. And in Texas, we do have a couple of very relatively high-speed highways. In fact, the highest speed highway in the United States is in Texas at 85 miles an hour. Now, most of the West Texas towns are 85 or 80 mile an hour. Some of the state highways are 75 and 70, that kind of thing. Well, it's not much racing if you're restricted to these kind of constraints. So how do you race on a public road and not break the law? I mean, we still have speed limits, right? Well, the answer to that is you change the law. So for 2 days out of the year, that section of road, whoops, look at that, actually looks like this. That is a legitimate, honest-to-goodness, 250 mile an hour speed limit sign that was posted on the highway in Texas. Well, there's one problem taken care of. So we do have speed limits in auto racing. But one of the things that I've noticed even though we have certain constraints, and there are certain rules, whether it be a competition or whether it be a business environment, is that we can still have fun even if we're not the one doing all of the fun. Okay? An example of this is, standing on the, just imagine with me for a moment. I was standing on the side of the highway on the Sanderson side of this event, and we're waiting for one of the fastest vehicles to come down the course. And off in the distance, there's this small little tuft of smoke or dust that's just kind of rising up right at the horizon of the desert floor. That little tuft of smoke gets a little bigger and a little bigger, and it kind of breaks off into two columns that kind of rise up from a single point. And it's like a vortex, a little tornado of sorts coming up from the center of the highway. And then a small bright light appeared at the very base of that. And then it broke into two pieces. And it got bigger, and you could make out the outline of this silver Porsche. Now, it didn't take long for that Porsche to go the 5 miles from the horizon, where it just came out of a canyon, to where I was standing. And I'm telling you, it was incredible. This thing came past in just a roar of internal combustion engine goodness and spinning twin turbos, and then this rush of wind and dust pelted me as it went by. It was just breathtaking to see something moving that fast. I thoroughly enjoy seeing people have fun. But what I didn't expect was to enjoy watching someone else watching someone have fun. Let me explain. I was 15 feet away from the Porsche when it went past me. But 15 feet beyond that is a state patrolman with a radar gun. Now, remember, it is illegal to speed. And can you imagine the speeding ticket fine if you were caught doing 251 mile per hour on a public road? I don't think it would be very pretty. So, posted along this course, sometimes hidden behind rocks or billboards or old barns or something like that, are state patrolmen with their radar guns. But on this long stretch of straight desert highway, we have one right at the finish line, and he just about jumped out of his skin. I'm telling you, this car goes past, and before I could, the noise of the car disappeared, this guy goes, "Oh, way! Oh, man, I can't believe it, I can't believe it!" And he's jumping around, and he's all excited. And he goes, somebody get a camera! Somebody get a camera! Oh, man! And he spins that radar gun around. He goes, 235 mile an hour! I can't believe it! Take my picture! I mean, the guy is just elated. And I was having a blast just watching this guy enjoy himself. I mean, how many cops do you know that get to clock somebody at 235 mile an hour? Well, as people kind of drift across the highway from the timing and scoring booth, and they're taking pictures of him and his radar gun, and they're getting their pictures taken with him, and this Porsche has a chance to slow down, go down the road, turn around, cool down, and return to the start-finish line to check on the time and speed at which they did this course. This particular race is all about consistency. What kind of person do you think drives a 235 mile an hour Porsche? How about a 68-year-old man? Now, this guy gets out of his Porsche, and he is cool as a cucumber. And I thought, wow, that's not what I expected. I expected some, middle-aged goof like me to come out there and, some guy that won the lottery or something, and, he's playing with fast cars. No, very sophisticated, very calm gentleman steps out of the car. And then one of the other rules of this event is that you have to have a navigator, a co-pilot, to go along with you. Well, what kind of a co-pilot does a 68-year-old man driving a 235-mile-an-hour car have with him? Now, not what I expected. How about his 70-year-old wife? And she gets out dressed in a matching leather driving suit, and she is not cool as a cucumber. Totally unexpected. My wife would not be cool as a cucumber either if I had just taken her 235 mile an hour. But her reason was different. She's out of the car and she finds out what the time and speed was, and she says, I knew it! I knew it! If you had listened to me, we'd have broken 240! And she turns around and she goes and gets back in the car. It wasn't fast enough. I'm thinking, wow, I had no idea a two-seater, high-performance, 235-mile-an-hour sports car could have a backseat driver. I don't know. At any rate, the important thing to realize here is that this information is absolutely critical. It's very important. They have something on the line. They have their reputation. They're actually involved in building cars that do 235 mile an hour and selling them to other people. And what better way to prove that the car that you're buying, that the dealer claims can do 235, can actually do 235, but to give them an officer's written warning of going how fast you were going, or the results from the race that you were in. Now, most of these events have data that just comes pouring in at an alarming rate. Usually this is the result of an antenna that's embedded in the track and a transponder that's attached to the car. Now the transponder has one job. That job is solely for the purpose of sending out a globally unique identifier that gets picked up by the antenna. That value gets picked up and merged with a timestamp by a controller, which then gets sent to the timing and scoring booth, decoded, and then matched up with important information about the event, such as what car number, who the driver is, who the owner is, all of this information, so that it can then get disseminated and broadcast out to the scoring pylons in an infield, if there is one, to the internet, can get displayed on television and mined for statistics so that announcers can sound more knowledgeable than they really are. Because when the caution flag waves, the fans want to know where their favorite driver is, who's in front of their favorite driver, who's behind their favorite driver, who's winning, and who's no longer in the race. And for some people, what Danica Patrick is up to. But you get the idea. It's important. Their reputation is on the line, and they take this very seriously. It's like the picture you see here. This is A.J. Foyt and Arie Luyendyk shortly after an IndyCar race in Texas, at Texas Motor Speedway. A.J. Foyt and his team, with Billy Boat as the driver, were declared the winner of the race. And Arie Luyendyk comes up and says, no, I'm the winner of the race. Well, this AJ here he's not patting Arie on the back, and he's not giving him a hug for a job well done. He's actually, unless you consider a firm grasp around the neck as a form of appreciation or acceptance or encouragement, that is not what's about to happen here, and an altercation occurred. Why? Because it's important. Their livelihood is on the line. It's important for the driver, the owner, their sponsor, the sanctioning body's sponsor, the networks. Everybody's got a stake in this thing, the advertisers. It's their livelihood that's at stake. And if you fail to properly identify, access, process, and report on this information correctly and in a timely manner, it could have dire consequences, such as the case for the United States Auto Club. It's not always our livelihood that's on the line, though. Sometimes it's our very life. And in healthcare, that is the case. Each of you is very unique and very different from the person sitting next to you. That means you eat different things, you exercise differently, you have different genetic makeup. The information that's collected on you when you go to the doctor when you're healthy is different. Now imagine how much different that information is when you're not healthy. Most of the time, we only go to the doctor when we're sick. Collecting all this information and putting it into a meaningful form is very difficult. And an organization called Health Level 7 has put together an XML document of sorts that, and a schema behind it that tries to structure and codify this information in a meaningful way so that it can be passed from one provider to another to another. The problem is, because you're different, and because our encounters are different, and because the information that's being collected about us is different, all of that information, except for the header, is optional. Try to break down an XML document and normalize it and stick it into a relational database when everything is optional. You end up with a database that's full of nulls. All the fields are nullable. That's a disaster for a relational database. Well, we were initially looking at this problem and said, there is no way we're going down the relational route with this because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. So what are our options? Well, let's see. What does Google do with a web page? If I can transform an XML document into HTML, and if Google can index HTML, then don't I just need my own little Google to be able to process these documents? Well, that's a great idea, but that doesn't work out real well. Two things happened. First of all, it fell asleep under its own weight. We reached a maximum throughput of about 20,000 patients per hour in throughput. That is totally unacceptable. Think about the millions of people in each town, the hundreds of thousands of patients in clinics and hospitals, and you get an idea for how troublesome this can be. One of the things that we did when we broke this apart was to take a look at dealing with this in separate pieces. And let's only focus on the information that we know we care about. Let's start with regulatory stuff. So we'll break it down. We'll just store the information we need. But what do we do when we need all of that extra information? And when David was up here sifting through his through the box and picked out his item of value, you can see that he grabbed one of these pieces of paper thinking there might be something of value in it. Well, David's he's a very smart man because there can be something of value in there. He even looked in one of these and happened to see that there wasn't anything of value in it. But sometimes that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes there is something of value in there. And in this case, you happen to grab one of them that didn't have any $20 bills, but some of them do have $20 bills. And the reality is, had you taken all of the balls instead of the iPad, you would have had something worth far more than what you took. How do we avoid this mistake? Well, it's simple. We siphon off only the information that we know we care about. Shove it into Cassandra in the simplest possible form. Think key value pairs here. We stack it all up, blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever it is that we need to be dealing with. And then know where to go when you need more information. So you take this XML document, throw it off into long-term storage, and then we come back when you find out you need more information, which always happens, some new regulation comes in, and boom, we reprocess it and repopulate our Cassandra database with the additional information and reduce it to a more meaningful set of values. But what about all of those doctor's notes that get put into the health record? They have abbreviations, they have emoticons, they have, you know, their own language, and we need to get to that information. Fortunately, that's where solar comes in. And when we found out that DataStax was actively involved in building this technology stack that satisfied all of these needs, I was stunned. You know, I can focus now on solving healthcare problems instead of solving technology problems. I'm not interested in the technology problem right now in my career. I'm interested in making people healthy and empowering patients. Congratulations. If you learned anything about this, about how to survive an avalanche and dealing with structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data, you survived. Thanks.